朋友们，大家好。本期视频是维韦克·拉马斯瓦米今年10月在某论坛上的一段讲话的节选。维韦克这个人之前并不是太出名，随着美国大选的进行，他逐渐浮出水面，最后竟然被特朗普选中，和马斯克一起领导政府效率部。维韦克生于1985年，父母是印度移民，他先后毕业于哈佛大学和耶鲁大学的法学院。毕业以后，创立了一家生物技术公司，并成功开发多种药物。年纪轻轻成了亿万富翁。他2023年宣布以共和党候选人的身份竞选美国总统，竞选的口号是重振美国精神。但2024年年初就宣布退选，退选以后改为全力支持特朗普。有人说维韦克这个人野心勃勃，竞选总统是为了打响名头，以图未来的发展。押宝押中特朗普是他成功的第一步。不过也有人说，喜欢独断专行的马斯克怎么受得了和他分享领导权？精明狡诈的马斯克深知政府效率部是个得罪人的部门，他准备届时拿维韦克当背锅侠。反正这些人都不是省油的灯，具体怎么发展，我们走着瞧。维韦克提倡美国优先的外交政策，反对过度的全球主义。他主张减少美国对国际事务的介入，专注国内问题，强烈主张缩小对乌克兰的支持，认为美国在俄乌冲突中的介入不符合美国的核心利益，倾向于与中国和俄罗斯保持有限的合作，以平衡全球权力，同时减少对多边机构的依赖。在这段视频中，他赤裸裸地提出，美国的首要利益应该是即使不能瓦解俄中联盟，也要削弱它。在乌克兰问题上达成的任何协议，都要以此为前提。我们来看看他是怎么说的吧。
I think the single greatest threat to the United States is the strength and growing strength of the Russia-China alliance. I do think that the actions of the United States and the West, but the United States in particular, have had the inadvertent effect of strengthening the Russia-China alliance. I don't attribute bad intentions to the people who did it. I don't think anybody in the United States who cares about the country wants that axis or that alliance to grow stronger. But that is what we've done. In part, especially over the time horizon you described, the last 15 to 20 years is when we've seen the strengthening of it. We agree on the facts. But the interpretation of those facts is that it's exactly over the period that NATO expanded, far more than we ever envisioned, that you saw Russia running into China's hands for its own protection. It's precisely over the period that we applied sanctions and cut off Russia economically, that they became more economically dependent on China. And China didn't welcome them economically for free, but had military concessions in return. Let's take a look at how harmful this is to the United States. Russia has hypersonic missile capabilities and arguably nuclear capabilities ahead of that of the United States. China's naval capacity is now arguably at least at parity with the United States and has an economy that we depend on for our modern way of life. Those two nations should not be in an alliance with one another if we're to advance the best interests of the U.S. And we made a commitment, and I appreciate the discussion we've already had about history, so we'll take that one step further. It was in 1990 that James Baker made a commitment to Gorbachev.
He did not.
His words, if I may,
Yeah.
but it seems that you may anticipate what I'm about to refer to. It says not 1 inch. It's a not 1 inch. You can deny whether he said those words or not. Maybe the historians who have written about it have all been lying for the last 30 years, but I don't believe they have. He said that NATO would expand not 1 inch past East Germany. The point of NATO was to deter Soviet expansion, yet NATO has expanded far more after the fall of the USSR than it ever did during the existence of the USSR, far further than East Germany. So I believe that has further sent Russia into China's hands out of their own self-interest. You look at the Ukraine war, let's look at the timing of these events. They now upgraded their otherwise 2001 strategic partnership to now what they call the No Limits Partnership, in conjunction in the same year that we actually have the Ukraine war escalation and eventually the start of the Ukraine war breaking out. So I believe that our own best intentioned actions have actually achieved a worst case scenario of a Russia-China military alliance where we now have joint military exercises occurring off the coast of the Aleutian Islands, not far from Alaska, which is part of the United States of America. So if I were speaking to the president, I tried to be the president, but we'll put that to one side. I do believe it's important to have civilian control of the military precisely because we're able to make decisions that are responsive to the electorate. But if I were asked to advise the next president, here's what I would say, is that our top objective in resolving the war in Ukraine should be to achieve peace quickly while advancing American interest. And the top American interest should be weakening, if not dismantling, the Russia-China alliance. Any deal that we do in Ukraine should be contingent on Russia no longer conducting joint military exercises with China. And by the way, we can monitor that. There will be consequences. But that's the top objective we should achieve. Get the Russian military presence out of the West. Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba, where there is direct or indirect Russian military presence. We don't want them in our hemisphere. And I think that those should be meaningful concessions that we should extract from Russia in return for at least opening the possibility of reopened economic relations with Russia and allowing Russia to no longer be his little brother, which is a position that I don't particularly believe he enjoys being in. That's the kind of diplomacy that I think we should use to end the Ukraine war on reasonable terms, end it quickly, de-escalate the possibility of nuclear conflict, but don't do it for free. Require Russia to exit that military alliance with China, exit their military presence in the West, and we will have strengthened U.S. national security interests in the process.
And